podcast dedicated to the music, movies, and culture of Generation X.
What is up, slackers, and welcome to another episode of the Stuck in the Middle podcast. I am your host, Jason Eck, and here we are, the week of Thanksgiving. You know, in my line of work, it has been just go, 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 and I always look forward to Thanksgiving. Tend to have, a couple of days before and after off, so it's nice. My break begins as of tomorrow. Well, technically at about 3 o'clock today, and, all the kids are home. There's been some drama with, relationship drama and school stress and, in between the different athletic seasons. And it's just a busy time of year, all still battling, some kind of cold or ailment. It's just been, that first stretch of, the first stretch of the school year, which is like the last quarter of, the year for everyone else, heading into Thanksgiving, into the holidays. But it's nice to get that first Thanksgiving break. So for those of you who are off, I think if you're like myself, you're really looking forward to having this time. I know I'm just exhausted, just beat up. So then just kind of on a side note, like with all of these other stresses and all this stuff going on, I ended up, so I mentioned before that I have Crohn's disease, and with that, the medications that I take, I'm supposed to frequently, or at least routinely, go and see the dermatologist. And I don't think I mentioned it last week. I think I was just, still reeling from the cold, but I've been waiting for, about a week, results from a biopsy. Went to the dermatologist and I knew it'd been a while. So, of course, the biopsy comes back, and it's the word that nobody likes to hear. Thankfully, it is a carcinoma. So I was diagnosed with skin cancer, which is never, like I said, you hear the word and, it brings up a lot of thoughts and feelings. I've certainly lost family to cancer. And to some extent, I think for myself, given that I'm also just a sun lover, I love to be outside, which is why this time of year gets to be kind of a bummer. It was somewhat inevitable, that I was going to deal with this. So it's not a melanoma, so I'm very, very thankful there. But it was just one other kind of added thing that had been kind of hanging on in the back of my head. So that was not the albatross that I mentioned. That's a work-related thing. So I guess this was an albatross, two albatrosses hanging around my neck, one that's work related. One was, health related, waiting to get this frickin' biopsy back. So, my oldest is home, and I was very, very laissez-faire, kind of blasé about my, hey guys, so dad has cancer. You have to make light of these things, I think. Otherwise they can become very, very heavy. And my son's like, what, you just go ahead and blurt that out like it's no big deal? I'm like, well, you know what? This is pretty common. A lot of people deal with it. It's sun damage. And you know what? It's squamous basal cell carcinoma. I'm like, it's treatable most of the time. And you know what? It should be fine. So I go in December to go ahead and have what's called a mosh procedure, which is pretty gnarly looking, by the way, if you're bored and want to Google something. The mosh procedure, which, they start to dig, and they're testing as they're going along to make sure they get all of the cancerous cells. So I have that coming up in a couple of weeks as well. So there's that. On top of just dealing with this stupid cold and all that. But still doing really well with smoking. So again, cancer-causing agent, good times. But you know what? I'm doing good. And this week, again, God willing, it's going to be 1 year of sobriety for me. Day after Thanksgiving. Well, technically, when the dates fall, it'll be 2 days. But this week I'll be hitting 1 year of sobriety. So, it's such a mixed bag. This is life. My oldest wanted to watch one of my all-time favorite movies. So he was home over the weekend. We had kind of a friends get together because their oldest boy was home from the military and we weren't sure if he's going to be here for Thanksgiving. he's not, but then he's going to be back like 2 days after Thanksgiving. I don't know, this whole thing. So we all got together, but, he's like, when I'm home, I'd really want to watch Tombstone. So Tombstone is one of my top 5 movies of all time. And Doc Holliday says something to the effect of, there's no such thing as a good life or a perfect life or whatever it was. It's just life. It's just life. And it's a true statement. It really is. Such a fine performance by Val Kilmer. But none of that is the topic for this evening at all. None of it. Quick aside, listener Paul had mentioned something, and it is a technical thing that I have been dealing with. Because you may have noticed at a certain point in listening to this podcast, having a stereo audio feed. And I've had some, changes to a couple of things and the rig setup and all that. And I'll record on StreamYard, which is what I use to, record all the podcasts, because I do record the video for use later down the road. And, there are stereo settings. And I can't replicate it. It's like 1 week I'll have stereo, and the next week it's mono. So if you're listening to the podcast in headphones, you're going to hear the opening credits stereo in your left and your right feed. And then you're going to hear my voice in just the left channel. Now, I am actually deaf in one ear, so I always only hear on the left channel, but I can see it visually on the screen where sometimes it will come over with stereo sound. I can't for the life of me figure out what's going on either with my audio interface or while I'm recording. So if anyone has any tips or tricks on how to go ahead and either work around that or use, some editing software to go ahead and do it, I can't figure it out in GarageBand without just duplicating the track so that, one is right, one's left. Anyway, open to any suggestions that anyone has, because that is kind of a frustration, I imagine, where, all of a sudden the audio kicks in for, let's say, the advertisements, and it's all super loud. And then it goes back to, my, sultry tones and just your left ear hole. But trying to figure it out, not exactly sure why I can't replicate it. But work in progress, see what I can do. So now to the meat, if you will. And I think meat is a great way to kind of phrase it because, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is all about eating. What I'm looking forward to more than just about anything else is pumpkin pie, a pure delicacy. And I think I've said it on the show before, but I went 30 some odd years without knowing the joys of the pumpkin pie. I probably had it as a kid at a time where tastes and textures I was very specific about and swore up and down that pumpkin was not something that I liked. Fast forward, I'm married and I'm in Nebraska with my wife's family, and my mother-in-law goes, "Come on, try a piece of the pumpkin pie." And that long weekend that we were there, I ate more than one pie all to myself. I'm quite certain I had more than one full pumpkin pie. And since then, that is my favorite dessert. At one point in my life, that would have been a New York style cheesecake, maybe even a good old fashioned, chocolate pie. What do they call it? It's like not a chocolate cream pie. It's like a chocolate pudding pie, where you just go ahead and have graham cracker crust and chocolate pudding. You freeze it, whipped cream on top. Gorgeous, right? Like those were my favorite desserts until pumpkin pie became a part of my life. And now it's what I like for my birthday, frankly. I'd rather have a pumpkin pie than a birthday cake any day of the week. Love pumpkin pie. And my ridiculous McDonald's, where I will go to get some lunch, advertised the frickin' pumpkin pie on the frickin' menu, and I have asked repeatedly, "Got a pumpkin pie?" "No, only apple." "Bullshit, you're hiding them from me. Give me the pumpkin pie. Give me the pumpkin pie. Give me the pumpkin pie." Anyway, but Thanksgiving, it is an interesting time because it's also this seemingly not forgotten. I think for many people, it's regardless of what it's not really about what your particular faith is, although I think it's certainly rooted in early Christianity and puritanical Christianity, at least here in the States, the colonies even. But now it's just a matter of giving thanks, right? And everyone kind of goes from Halloween. And when I say everyone, I mean like retailers, obviously. It goes from Halloween to Christmas. And I think that's bullshit for a couple of reasons. One, there's Thanksgiving, an actual national holiday that is meant to be giving thanks. Like, that's the point. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like religious and giving thanks to, a deity. It's just giving thanks. Like, just a universal thing, right? How does it just get ignored because of the consumerism of let's get to Christmas so that we can sell shit? It bothers me because I think Thanksgiving is such a perfect stopgap in the season. Like, that really is the nice transition from the fun and frolic of Halloween. Now, obviously, if you're in, the Christian faith, there's All Souls and it becomes a very spiritual time as you're beginning to make your way to Thanksgiving, which then kicks you into the Advent season, right? So it's logical in its placement, and it kind of gets a raw deal in a way. Like, I only have ever seen, I think, a handful of times where people will have a big, inflatable turkey or big inflatable, like, pilgrims out in their yard. It's like Halloween right into Christmas. Come on. So I think it also gets missed by Hollywood. There are movies for everything. Let's be honest. It could be the most random holiday, and you better bet that there's going to be some horror movie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Let's pick a random holiday. I don't know. Is there a Memorial Day movie? Probably a bunch. Veterans Day? Yeah, absolutely. Born on the 4th of July. Yeah, your 4th of July movies. Your big, patriotic stuff. I'm not sure if there's one for like some of these National Day of let's pick a freaking cause, but I'm sure if you can think it, there'll be a movie related to it. But Thanksgiving, although there are lists upon lists upon lists that'll tell you there's 60, 70, 100 different Thanksgiving movies, let's be honest, there's only a handful that really qualify, truly. And some of them are fairly recent. Now, some of them are also a stretch. Now, when I say a stretch, some people might not think that a movie like Die Hard, for example, is a Christmas movie. Well, nay, that is a Christmas movie without a doubt. And there's actually a whole podcast, which you can go ahead and listen to in the archives, called Die Hard is a Christmas Movie. So go check that one out if you'd like. So I'm looking at the list of 21 best Thanksgiving movies to stream right now. Right now. Now, of course, this is a Gen X podcast. There are some movies that are directly from our generation. And in fact, there's one in particular that is, I think, a fond part of our childhood. Now, for me, one of the movies that's not on the list, but I equate somewhat between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Excuse me as I take a sip of my water. But I seem to recall that every year, and I believe it was CBS would play The Wizard of Oz on TV, and I'm pretty sure it was around Thanksgiving. Now, you can fact check me on that, but I recall that was every year something that we watched during Thanksgiving. Not a Thanksgiving movie, of course, but hey, I just equate the two. But why don't we take a look? Take a look. Take a lick. Oh, hey now. Let's take a look. So this is an article from VanityFair.com. And like I said, 21 best Thanksgiving movies to stream right now. And in fact, at least one or two of these we will be streaming. So why don't we start off with the one that absolutely just is a Thanksgiving movie. And I think it's one of the few that just, by all measurements, including the actual story, is a Thanksgiving movie. And I haven't watched this with my kids yet, so I think this has to be on the list. I'm, of course, talking about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, starring Steve Martin and John Candy. So, you have Steve Martin in one of his more uptight roles, right? he could be a lot of different things, like much more versatile, but he normally plays this kind of like, you can't really say he's a straight man because he does some absurdist over the top stuff. But certainly in this setting, excuse me, he's the uptight guy. So he's Neil. And Neil, he wants to go from New York to Chicago for Thanksgiving. That's just like a simple thing. But his plans, as it puts it here, are foiled time and time again by John Candy's boisterous, showering salesman, Dell. And he just wants to be friends. So now they are traveling from New York to Chicago together with a series of misadventures and planes, trains, and automobiles. Now, it's been many years since I've seen this, so I'm going to have to watch it, and maybe that will be a follow-up episode as I kind of delve into it. But the two of them are two of the greats of comedy. I mean, they really are. What year was this? I want to say it was 87? Let's see. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Let's see how good my timetable is here. 1987 on the dot, boy. All right, I got it. Anyway, yeah, and when you go to the write-up for the film itself, yeah, I mean, it's a series of misadventures. A 3-day odyssey, which, by the way, you could do the drive from New York to Chicago in like no time. Like you could do it in a day if you drive straight through. So if you haven't seen it, it's classic. It's legendary with two of the absolute greats of comedy. Now, the next movie I've never seen, and if I remember correctly, you have some either implied or maybe overt incestuous relationships here. The House of Yes, starring Parker Posey. And to call it offbeat, if I remember the plot points here, she stars as a Jackie O-obsessed woman whose grasp of reality is set into a total freefall when her twin brother, played by Josh Hamilton, and his fiance, played by Tori Spelling, come home for the holidays. Now, I'm pretty sure that she has a incestuous relationship with her twin brother in this movie. But Posey won a Sundance Special Jury Prize for the film, affirming her place in the Hall of Fame, Indie Hall of Fame. So I'm not sure if I would call this exactly family fare, but it is listed here firmly as a Thanksgiving movie. Oh boy. So I mentioned this movie a couple weeks ago. Actually, last week it came up. I mentioned Charlize Theron in the Best Actresses episode. And she did a very sentimental love story with Keanu Reeves called Sweet November. So if I recall correctly, they meet, they decide they're going to spend November together because, you know, the holidays are kind of a pain, and she gets diagnosed with cancer and is dying. Do I have that correct? Let's see. Excuse me. Really trying to do this without a cough since that's back. Yay. That's even with quitting smoking. Sweet November, 2001. Plot. Ooh, she beguiles him. Yes, so spoiler alert, she has terminal cancer. So, yeah, there's a whole Thanksgiving Day kind of return and reprise the relationship, and yeah. Anyway, tearjerker. And I'm not going to say that it is great filmmaking. There's a reason why, despite me thinking Keanu Reeves is amazing, and we know that Charlize Theron has been given the awards, you know, the I guess, award recognition kind of thing. It is schmaltzy. And if you just want a sentimental, very saccharine, very, very over the top kind of purposely we want to plug at your heartstrings, this would be the movie for you. So if you like these kind of romantic movies, this will be on your list for Thanksgiving. So now the next one. So I mentioned how we kind of jump over, right? Thanksgiving. This one is called Almost Christmas, which is perfect when you think about it, because it's almost Christmas and we kind of forget. But this movie says here isn't exactly about Thanksgiving necessarily, but that it's like a large family gathering set sometime before Christmas, right? Now, the original treatment for the movie was called A Myers Thanksgiving. Well, for whatever reason, it didn't come to fruition. But I've never seen this movie. It's a 2016 ensemble starring Danny Glover, Kimberly Elise, Monique, and Gabrielle Union. But it says here, J.B. Smoove, that guy's great. Nicole Ari Parker, Omar Epps, and Gladys Knight also star in the film. All right. So check it out. Okay, so this one is absolutely a Thanksgiving movie. Now, it has been 150 million years since I've seen this. And I want to say that this is 91 maybe? Let's see how good I am with this one. You're going to know exactly what movie I mean. And the cast is stellar. Let's see. 95. 95. So this is Home for the Holidays, directed by Jodie Foster, with a screenplay by W.D. Richter based on a short story by Chris Radant. The film score was composed by Mark Isham. So you already have a bunch of major Hollywood players. But let's take a look at this cast. Holly Hunter as Claudia Larson, Robert Downey Jr. as Tommy Larson, Anne Bancroft as Adele Larson, Charles Durning as Henry Larson, Dylan McDermott as Leo Fish, Geraldine Chaplin as Aunt Gladys, Steve Guttenberg as Walter Wedman, Cynthia Stevenson as Joanne Larson Wedman, Claire Danes. Excuse me, folks. Trying to get through it here. Austin Pendleton, Amy Yazbek, David Strathairn. Anyway, totally killer cast. Directed by Jodie Foster. And Claudia Larson is a single mother who has just been fired from her job. She flies from Chicago to spend Thanksgiving at the Baltimore home of her parents, Adele and Henry, while her only child decides to stay home and spend the holiday with her boyfriend. And a whole bunch of hilarity and pathos and conflict, and yeah, it's a true family story with all the things that kind of go into it, right? You know, when your daughter wants to stay with her boyfriend for the holiday instead of being with the rest, like not a little girl anymore, right? What do you do? You know, Robert Downey Jr.'s character is considered the misanthropic brother, and Dylan McDermott as a semi-mysterious dinner guest. But it's been a million years since I've seen it, but I think this is going to be one that's going to be added to our list since we have a few days off to enjoy movies. Check it out. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that cast. Come on. The New World. So this is pushing it, right? So again, the writers of this article are trying to fit things in when we know that there are limited offerings on Thanksgiving movies, right? So if you're going to talk about Thanksgiving, you want to go back in time to the very beginning, right? You're going to talk about the settling of the United States, or what was the colonies at the time. So you have the movie The New World, directed by Terrence Malick. It's the story of Virginia's Jamestown settlement. So it's meant to be a moving reminder of the darkness inherent in America's founding. Colin Farrell plays British Captain John Smith, while Q'orianka Kilcher brings to life Pocahontas for a love story that's doomed from the start. Or, which is missing from this list altogether, you could watch Disney's Pocahontas. Just throwing it out there. Okay, so next we have One True Thing. This is a Renee Zellweger and Meryl Streep, two Oscar-winning actresses. Apparently this gets pretty heavy, and they say that a mother and daughter go to blows during an emotional Thanksgiving scene. Now, does this say that Meryl Streep won for this role. One True Thing. Again, one of those movies that if I didn't read it on a list, I wouldn't have known it existed. One of those award season movies, am I right? Reception. Of course. Received mostly favorable reviews from critics, with Streep being the subject of acclaim for bringing warmth and natural energy instead of appearing cold and technical. Really? Because that's what I've really found about Meryl Streep over these past, I don't know, probably 10 years, that her range and ability to really embody these characters, including giving great warmth, is tremendous. She was nominated, but she lost to Gwyneth Paltrow, who had won for Shakespeare in Love. Good grief. You got robbed, Meryl. You got robbed. Again, a movie that's not, quote unquote, technically about Thanksgiving. Wes Anderson's 2009 stop motion film, Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is excellent, but it's also starring Meryl Streep in a voice role, of course, and George Clooney. But it's been labeled a Thanksgiving must-watch. But that's because the film, based on Roald Dahl's classic children's novel, is all about animals trying to escape this tyranny of farmers. Something every turkey, not lucky enough to be pardoned by the president, wishes it could do around Thanksgiving. Okay, so I have a lot of turkeys in my neck of the woods. Lots of them. Majestic flyers, by the way. Well, they're not really majestic. They're clumsy flyers, but they're big, amazing creatures. They are dumb. So I will tell you, there's not a single turkey that's thinking about anything. Anything at all. Their brains are empty. Nothing going on. So anyway, Fantastic Mr. Fox, if you got kids and you haven't seen it, it's, you know, even if you don't have kids and you like animation and you like Wes Anderson, who I think is amazing, it's a great, fun little movie. The animation style's fan-fucking-tastic. Okay. So the next movie is also technically a actual Thanksgiving movie. And it is also a bit schmaltzy. And it's one of those films that was meant to be kind of an artsy turn for an up-and-coming young actress by the name of Katie Holmes, called Pieces of April. Now, Maggie and I watched this, the first, like when it first came out on video, probably still going to like Hollywood Video. Like I know we rented it. I mean, it was meant to be like her first big role, like carrying a film, but like a little bit artsy. Like I said, April prepares to host her suburban Pennsylvania family and the high stakes nature of spending a day hunkered down with her relatives, played by Patricia Clarkson, Oliver Platt, Allison Pill, and John Gallagher Jr. rushes in, right? So the fate of the movie rests on whether she can successfully cook a turkey in her crowded Lower East Side apartment. So just being young, maybe having some estrangement from your family, trying to be on your own and trying to host Thanksgiving and cook a turkey. And I've cooked a turkey in a little apartment oven. And you could do it, you know, you really can. And that's kind of like she's asking her neighbors for help because she doesn't know how to do everything. I think this is the movie, at least. And it was a good little flick. Nothing too deep. It's meant to have moments of, you know, tearjerkerness as, you know, family comes together. But ultimately, you know, it's a good little movie. And specifically for Thanksgiving. Now, the movie that we all watched, and I would call it our Thanksgiving movie, going back, I think everyone, let's see, because it would have come out, I want to say, 71, 72, maybe even earlier. Let's see. I'm trying to think of the timeline of when these movies started. Oh, I was close. 1973's A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. It was the 10th primetime animated special based upon the comic strip Peanuts. So November 20th, 1973. Well, isn't that interesting? 50 years yesterday. And it won an Emmy Award the following year. Yeah, I mean, these things, these Charlie Brown specials, you know, my kids have always been kind of like, It's really not interesting because they are kind of slow moving, but I always found them to be like appointment viewing. Like every year when it was on, like you absolutely had to watch it. It wasn't this with the little red-haired girl or whatever it was? This is when you get Lucy making Charlie try to kick the ball. Come on, Chuck. Oh, wait, that's Peppermint Patty. That's right. Charlie Brown gets a phone call from Peppermint Patty. Hey, Chuck, who's alone for Thanksgiving and wants to come over for dinner at the Browns' house. Soon thereafter, inviting Marcy and Franklin. Linus suggests to a perplexed Charlie Brown they could have 2 Thanksgiving dinners. The first Thanksgiving feast can be for himself, Peppermint Patty and the others, while the second one can be at his grandparents' house for his family. But why on earth is Peppermint Patty alone for Thanksgiving? I don't think that's ever been answered. Anyway, Snoopy and Woodstock go to the doghouse and cook up their own traditional Thanksgiving meal. They then break the wishbone, which Woodstock wins. And over the end credits, the two devour dessert of pumpkin pie. Classic. Just classic. A movie that I have seen once. Never really for me. I think generationally it was kind of off. The Big Chill. Thanksgiving flashback provides key context for a complicated dynamic among a group of recently reunited college friends. Played by Glenn Close, Kevin Kline, Jeff Goldblum, Mary Kay Place, William Hurt. Lawrence Kasdan's film earned 3 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Original Screenplay, and Supporting Actors for Close. Lawrence Kasdan, of course, Empire Strikes Back. That was him, right? Didn't Kasdan do Empire Strikes Back? Hope I have that right. Pretty sure that it is. And continued to be, directed by Irvin Kershner with a screenplay by Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan. So did he do Jedi? Because I could have sworn that he directed one. Richard Marquand directed Return of the Jedi. I could have sworn Lawrence Kasdan directed one, but I guess not. Huh. Well, shame on me. I get to have my Star Wars card pulled. I don't know, the guy's a director. I just thought he directed, but apparently he was also a screenwriter and wrote, and continues to write, by the way, for Lucasfilm. So next we have, guys, I'm sorry if these last couple of episodes have been a little bit dodgy, trying to get back to that place of long form stuff, but I just am fascinated by the lack of Thanksgiving movies, and I thought you might enjoy this. So yeah, She's Gotta Have It. Again, while not a Thanksgiving-themed film, protagonist Nola Darling invites all 3 of her potential suitors to a tense dinner on that very holiday. Well, then yes, it is. If it takes place on the holiday, it is one of those movies. Just because you don't have all that family-friendly garbage or everyone's sitting around, yes, if it's set during the holiday, it is themed that way. Period. But that's, Spike Lee. Now, a more recent addition. So Rian Johnson, for as much as he screwed up Star Wars, which apparently I'm not allowed to say since I just got Larry Kasdan wrong, Rian Johnson and Knives Out. So the original Knives Out is a Thanksgiving movie, as it says, without ever mentioning it. See, but I thought it was. Has all the trappings of a Thanksgiving movie without ever mentioning the holiday. Yeah, but they're all getting together. Are you sure they didn't mention it? I could have sworn they did. Huh. Anyway, if you haven't seen Knives Out, check it out. Friendsgiving, I don't know what movie that is, but I believe you. Movie Soul Food with Vivica A. Fox, Vanessa Williams, and Nia Long. Again, it says not outright a Thanksgiving movie. What the hell is this list? Rocky, right? Rocky. Rocky is a Thanksgiving movie. And say, to hell you say, right? But it is because you actually have a big dramatic moment, right? So 1976, Best Oscar Picture. Stallone thinks that his fate is going to change now that he has met Adrian, right? So, to you, it's Thanksgiving. To me, it's Thursday. Rocky tells Adrian as he whisks her away from a disastrous family feast. Minutes after her brother Paulie, the recently departed Burt Young, by the way, hurls her turkey into the nearby alley. As fans of the franchise, which has debuted several times over the Thanksgiving holiday, know their Thanksgiving meat cute will stand the test of time. What does that say? As fans of the franchise, which has debuted several films over the Thanksgiving holiday, know their Thanksgiving meat cute will stand the test of time. I don't know who wrote that, but I hate them for that sentence. Gosh, what does that mean? Their Thanksgiving meat cute will stand the good God. Please tell me, send me an email, put it on the socials. What does that mean? I'm genuinely curious. Help me out. Let's see, is this another one that's not actually a Thanksgiving movie, but it might kind of maybe be? No, because this one says, Mistress America, Greta Gerwig. Before Greta Gerwig forced Noah Baumbach to write Barbie with her, there was Mistress America. Written by the real-life couple who helmed the billion-dollar blockbuster, this 2015 Sundance favorite centers on the unlikely friendship between Lola Kirks-Tracy, a first-year college student alone in New York, and Gerwig's Brooke, the Times Square living 20-something who will soon become her stepsister. Conflict between the pair gets resolved on Thanksgiving at New York City's Veselka, a Ukrainian institution where pierogies stand in for the traditional bro. First of all, this is apparently resolved on Thanksgiving, and there's pierogies involved? No one told me there were pierogies involved. Pierogies are amazing and one of the truly great foods that exist on this planet. So apparently it's also, a Ukrainian institution, but also Polish, and pierogies, good stuff. Love pierogies. I want to eat them right now. So this says, Greta Gerwig must really love Thanksgiving. This auteur's Oscar-nominated take on the Louisa May Alcott classic is brimming with cozy Thanksgiving-esque vibes. Now here it says, set largely in the weeks before Christmas. This is true. They get together, they stage, living room plays, battle of wits, trots through the snow. But yeah, it definitely is leading up to Christmas, but I'm not sure. Was it officially a holiday then? Probably not. But I will know if you're ever around Massachusetts, you can obviously go to the Louisa May Alcott Homestead, which is in Lexington, or is it Arlington? Anyway, it's right there. I worked right down the street for many years, and great place to visit. For someone who's a fan of Adam Sandler, I haven't seen Funny People with Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, Jason Schwartzman, Aubrey Plaza, and Bo Burnham. But let's see. At one point, he joins the Friendsgiving festivities, which has all the younger comics because Adam Sandler's older comic has been newly diagnosed with cancer. And this is a Judd Apatow flick, considered a dramedy. But I guess it has some Friendsgiving festivities. Let's see. The Humans. This is about a play. Let's see. It's about a group of people all gathered in a drab Chinatown apartment for Thanksgiving. And this film is based upon a play starring Richard Jenkins, June Squibb, Beanie Feldstein, Stephen Yuen, and Amy Schumer. It's a weird cast. Very weird cast. But hey, it's a Thanksgiving movie. And much like I mentioned earlier, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. The authors of this particular article state that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is also a Thanksgiving movie. While the central action followed Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, there's a pivotal scene set at Thanksgiving dinner that directly follows a heated battle between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. Yes, that's right. During the meal, Osborn, played by Willem Dafoe, comes to the stunning realization that Peter Parker, played of course by Tobey Maguire, is in fact Spider-Man. The way Dafoe carves the turkey is both sinister and iconic, as is Maguire apologizing for his tardiness because he had to beat an old lady with a stick to get these cranberries. So I guess based upon that scene alone, it is in fact a Thanksgiving movie. So there you have it, the 21 best Thanksgiving movies to stream right now. Obviously, the authors took some liberties to shoehorn some of these films in to being quote-unquote Thanksgiving movies. And I will admit, I got hung up on a couple of them and found myself in a state of, I don't want to say self-awareness, moments of doubt, going, oh my gosh, you guys are going to hate this podcast. And you know what? The podcast has been going really, really well, particularly lately, in spite of what I haven't been so sure about content and whether it was relatable or enjoyable, even though, you know what, that it's still plugging away and so many of you come back each week. But yeah, I totally had a self-conscious, that's what I was looking for, self-conscious moment of like, oh my gosh, did you not vet this article enough? Like all the stuff that I skimmed was like, oh yeah, totally, this makes perfect sense. And it's a couple of entries of things that I don't know because I've never claimed to be, an encyclopedia of any type of movie. But yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, where's this article going? And some of these aren't even Thanksgiving movies in any way, shape, or form, not even tangentially. Like if you're not having like some kind of loose thread, some loose narrative thread that at least points to the direction of Thanksgiving, don't put on the list. And I still don't know what meet cute. What the hell was that? I don't know. That almost lost me. I almost just logged off right then and there. Just gone. Where did he go? I don't know. He just went to credits. What the fuck happened? Anyway, I do love Thanksgiving, and I do wish there were more movies, as evidenced by this ridiculous list. And then, of course, finding myself having these little coughs and sniffles, it certainly doesn't help. But I always say, like, one of these days, I'm just going to get up early on a Saturday morning. I'm going to bang out a bunch of, like, awesome, kick-ass content. But I'm going to need to know what you're looking for. You want me to bring back the deep dives into the movie charts, long forms on particular artists, different genres of music? Let me know. What is it that you enjoy about the podcast, and what would you like to see more of? But it is that time. So I'd like to wish you, your families, your loved ones, whether you are spending it with friends, family, with no one at all, and that's okay too. Sometimes getting away from everyone is the best thing that you could possibly do. And if you're lonely this time of year, which many of us are going into the holidays, just know that I'm thankful that you're here. I'm thankful for you every time you come and listen. I'm thankful that anyone would even be interested in this little podcast. And if I can give you even a couple of minutes, 40, 50, 60 minutes of my time, where you can just get away from it all and shut off your brain and listening to my ramblings and maybe find some small comfort through my wacky ass voice, well, then I am so appreciative and glad that what I do is reaching someone. Yeah, it's why I do it. It's why I do it. Meaningful connections. And, for those of you who have taken to, social media, maybe you're newly following or you've sent me emails, it's really appreciated. Like, I'm not always great about, responding right away. But yeah, I see everything, I read everything, and I really, really appreciate it. I am ultimately thankful to you, the listeners, for this show even being possible. So how can you reach out to me? You can email me at stuckmiddlepod@yahoo.com. You can find me on Instagram, X, and YouTube at StuckPodX. Head on over to the Facebook page, Stuck in the Middle, a Gen X podcast. Please like, comment, share, leave 5-star reviews, and most importantly, please subscribe to the podcast. So, until next time, later, slackers.